My name is Daniel Esser. I'm an assistant professor of international development at American University in Washington, D.C. And my project is about resilience in the face of extreme violence in cities. I have conducted research in 2012 in Ciudad, Juárez, which is the border city with El Paso in Texas, which used to be until very recently the murder capital of the world. What I'm interested in is what do people do when they're faced with chronic levels of extreme violence, as was the case in Ciudad Juárez, but also in many other cities around the world. And what I'm trying to understand is to what extent theories of resilience can be applied to settings of man-made or human-made violence. And so I've conducted research there. I've run a large-scale neighborhood-level survey together with a team from a local university. And what I'm finding is quite striking, that resilience in many cases depends very much on individual level affiliations with the church, for example, with sports clubs, in many cases is determined also by the length of tenure that people have stayed there, which of course in a transient city like Ciudad Juárez is a huge issue. But what I'm finding is that in neighborhoods in which people have been living for a long time, the violence, despite its magnitude, has actually not had much of an influence on how people live and on how people see the future and their decisions on whether or not they want to stay in Juárez. So in a sense, it's a very upbeat message, namely that even extreme levels of violence in a city like that don't necessarily destroy the social fabric of a city, which of course provides all kinds of ground for more research on these particular issues. What I'm also finding, however, is that theories of resilience, as we know them from natural disaster and climate change contexts, have only very limited applicability to places like Ciudad Juárez and other violent cities. The way I look at resilience is that it is not so much a result of public-private partnerships or support by central government. The way I look at resilience under the conditions of chronic violence, particularly in cities, in Ciudad Juárez and elsewhere, is that it depends very much on how local entities support neighborhoods in their own ways of organizing, in their own ways of getting together, in their own ways of finding meaningful ways of collective action. So resilience, in the way that it emerges from my research, emphasizes the agency of local people in cities. And the question then for policymakers needs to be, what can be done to support collective action in the city that is facing extreme levels of violence without being afraid of the politics that may entail? What I'm seeing is that, particularly when we think about resilience, we're very often very skeptical of the political potential that can be unleashed when we work with local communities. What I'm finding is that that potential is in almost all cases, is very positive, and that it is worth supporting because it strengthens the social fabric of the city. For me, this was a unique experience. I'm early in my career. I frankly had not really hoped to be invited to be a resident here. I was thrilled when I received the notification. And I've met people from all kinds of different disciplines, all kinds of geographical backgrounds, all kinds of walks of life. And for me, that has provided an absolutely unparalleled environment to do my own work. I was a little bit concerned at the beginning, before arriving here, that a community that is so diverse in terms of what the residents do and what they research, what they're interested in, what they're writing about, I was concerned that that would not necessarily be an environment in which I would be able to receive much substantive feedback. But it turned out to be a concern that wasn't particularly salient, because what matters, I think, in Bellagio is the kind of conversations you have around your work and what you do, and the kind of intellectual engagement far beyond the narrow confines of what your own research is about. So that's been extremely inspiring, and I'm very thankful for that.